Hey guys, it's the Faceless Beanie and welcome to my Nidus guide where I walk you through his abilities, show you some synergies, and a simple build as well. Let's get into it. We'll start with Nidus's passive, Mutation Stacks. Mutation Stacks are a unique resource to Nidus that can be tracked on the indicator on the bottom right of the HUD, split into 5 segments. You fill up each segment by hitting an enemy with Nidus's Virulence or Revenance abilities. You'll gain a mutation stack after 5 enemies are hit. Enemies killed while trapped by larva have a 50% chance of granting a mutation stack as well. Mutation stacks are required to use Nidus's 3rd and 4th abilities, Parasitic Link and Ravenous, and also contribute towards the first ability, Virulence's ability damage. Mutation stacks allow Nidus to trigger Undying. If you have at least 15 stacks, whenever Nidus takes fatal damage, the 15 stacks are consumed, granting him 5 seconds of invulnerability and restoring half his health, preventing death. This will not trigger if you have less than 15 stacks. You don't lose mutation stacks unless you use them. You can stack up to 100 at any one time. Nullifier enemies will drain 1 stack every 2 seconds, slowly ramping up the rate as Nidus remains in their radius. Finally, Nidus's appearance will change at 3, 5, 7 and 10 stacks, respectively. The Augment mod Abundant Mutation increases the max stacks Nidus can carry but adds a 30-second cooldown to Undying. Alright, let's get into his first ability, Virulence. Nidus releases a growth of fungal infestation in a straight line ahead of him. Enemies are staggered briefly and receive puncture damage, which is amplified by the number of mutation stacks currently accumulated. Virulence also refunds energy to Nidus for each enemy hit, effectively making it free to use if you hit at least 4 targets at once, as 25% of energy used is refunded per target. Damage is affected by ability strength and mutation stacks, range is affected by ability range, and energy refunded is inversely affected by ability efficiency. The Augment mod Teeming Virulence grants increased critical chance for Nidus's primary weapon upon hitting 4 enemies with 1 cast of Virulence. Moving on to Larva. Nidus releases an infested larva towards the aiming reticle. Upon impact with a surface or enemy, or by triggering the ability again, larva matures into a bunch of floating tentacles that grab all enemies within the line of sight of a limited radius. Affected enemies are pulled in together and ragdolled, rendering them motionless. Larva disappears if there's no enemies to grab or after its ability duration runs out. Once duration runs out, any unkilled enemies drop to the ground. You can't recast larva while it's active. Note that any enemies that can't be ragdolled will be released. Grab radius is affected by ability range. Duration is affected by ability duration. The Augment mod Larva Burst allows larva to be detonated on recast, dealing toxin damage proportional to the enemies trapped in larva. This Augment mod effectively allows larva to be recast while active. Moving on to the 3rd ability, Parasitic Link. This ability requires mutation stacks to be activated. 1 stack is used to perform symbiosis with an ally or an enemy within a limited range. The link persists as long as the target and Nidus remain in range of each other and lasts for a limited time or until deactivated. When linked with an ally, Nidus and his ally receive an ability strength and damage bonus, while when he's linked with an enemy, the enemy is completely disabled and Nidus transfers a percentage of all damage received to the target instead. This is capped at 90% of all damage received, achievable with an ability strength of 180%. Knockdown, stagger and status effects are also transferred to the linked enemy. Any external damage to the disabled target is accumulated and dealt to it once the link expires. Once linked, line of sight is not required to maintain the link between the target. Ally and enemy link range is affected by ability range, and duration is affected by ability duration. finally, Ravenous. This ability requires 3 mutation stacks to activate. 3 stacks are turned into an infestation, spreading outwards from Nidus in an area of effect around him for a limited time. Nidus and his allies regenerate a fixed amount of health per second while inside the area of effect. Infested cysts form around the area of effect, spawning maggots that latch onto nearby enemies, stunning them and inflicting toxin damage over time. This toxin damage is affected only by the number of mutation stacks accumulated, not ability strength. Only 9 maggots can be active at any time. If they die and the ability is still active, they will respawn via the cysts. There's 3 nests on the edge of the area of effect, which serve to maintain the effect. For nullifying enemies, when they come into contact with the nest, it is destroyed. Once all 3 nests are destroyed, the ability is disrupted. Health regeneration per second is affected by ability strength, and duration is affected by ability duration. The augment mod Insatiable allows Nidus to generate an additional mutation stack for each stack generated while he's within the area of effect of Ravenous. Alright, time for some synergies. When an active target is linked via parasitic link, casting Virulence will cause it to cast its own instance of Virulence as well, effectively allowing Nidus to deal double the hits and gain more stacks quickly. While casting Virulence, hold down the ability key to get an outline of where your ability will be casted. This will help you aim effectively in battle. Using Larva in combination with Virulence will help you get your stacks up initially. Speaking of stacks, however, the ideal way would be to cast Ravenous, then Larva enemies into the area of effect, let maggots run onto the enemies and cast Virulence on them. This causes the maggots to explode, and that counts as a hit towards your mutation stack accumulation in addition to the enemy hit, allowing you to accumulate double stacks in the same time. This loop will make you invincible as well, as every time you take fatal damage, Undying will activate and you'll always have enough stacks to activate Undying, in addition to continuous healing while within the area of effect. Parasitic Link can be used on high health enemies as a form of defense and can also surpass the Juggernaut's armor if you have an issue dealing with the mobs around him. On to a simple build. This 3-former build focuses on getting as much range as possible since it positively affects all abilities, along with at least 180% strength to maximize the damage redirection from Parasitic Link. Default duration is fine since Nidus' abilities already last long enough, and the lower efficiency is no issue since the energy refund from Virulence will keep you at max energy almost all the time anyway. Feel free to put in an aura forma to swap the aura. Corrosive Projection is ideal instead of Steel Charge here. Blind Rage and Intensify combine to give us the 180% strength we need to hit Parasitic Link's damage redirection cap. Vitality, Steel Fiber, Adaptation are all minimal survivability mods. You combine these with Parasitic Link and you'll almost never die wherever you go. And even if you do, you trigger Undying anyway. Stretch and Overextend it for the range. And Hunter Adrenaline converts all damage received to energy since Nidus has no shields. Cunning Drift for some extra range doesn't hurt. Arcane Grace is recommended for even more healing, and the other slot is completely optional. Feel free to upgrade the build with Umbral mods instead of the regular mods I've used here. So in closing, Nidus is a really fun tank and will survive basically anywhere. His gameplay loop mostly involves the Larva and Virulence combo, along with always having Parasitic Link active by linking with a high health enemy. If you're camping out somewhere, casting Ravenous and ensuring all your kills are from within its area of effect are the best idea for longevity. You basically force all the attention on yourself with Larva, and this is great for defense, mobile defense and excavation missions, as it allows you to get enemies away from the objective as well. Alright, that's about it. I hope it helped you out. This is the Faceless Beanie, signing out.